Hello and welcome to the Energy to Heal podcast, where faith meets emotional healing. I'm your host, Laura Milliken, a registered nurse, a master's level Splankna practitioner, and a mom of 5. On this show, we explore the Splankna protocol, a Christian mind-body healing modality that helps you address emotional and spiritual pain at the root. Whether you're navigating trauma, stuck in patterns, or just walking around the world feeling numb, you're not alone, and there's hope. I strongly believe that we were created to heal. It's in our DNA. Each episode offers honest conversations, tools for healing, and encouragement to walk in the emotional freedom that Jesus paid for. Let's dive in. 6 years ago, I was a mother of 3, and I had a 4, 5, and 6-year-old. My middle child is the entire reason we got introduced to Splankna. And the story of what happened with him is wild. And honestly, I didn't have a frame for it back then. As a registered nurse, I felt like everything needed to be able to be seen under a microscope or it wasn't real. And I had never heard of anything like Splankna before. And honestly, we tried it out of desperation. And I have full, complete permission from my son to tell you guys this story. He's much older now. He's 12. But when he was in kindergarten, we were really, really struggling with him. My biggest heartache as a parent is that he really was struggling, but I didn't know that he was struggling. I thought he was being naughty. What was actually happening was he was struggling with severe separation anxiety, like debilitating. We couldn't drop him off at grandparents' house. We couldn't bring him to Sunday school. Every Sunday, I would sit in the hallway with him outside of the church that he was like, we'd been going there his whole life. There's nothing new about it. He knew all the people. He could not bring himself to walk in no matter what we tried. So I would sit in the hallway with him and sit in my misery and my feelings of failure as a mom. And even getting him to school, especially getting him to school, was a nightmare. In preschool, it looked like, all these parents would pull up and their kids would get out and they'd high five the teacher and they'd wave goodbye to their mom. And I would pull up and like the battle would begin. My son would hide, he'd yell, he'd throw things. And you guys, I had no idea that he was scared. I know that sounds wild, but it never showed itself as fear. It always showed up as aggression. Like, you hear that fight or flight. He was just in fight. We tried so many things. Diet changes, getting rid of gluten, getting rid of dairy. We talked to our pediatrician about it. Like, he was really, really struggling. And I had used every one of my parenting tools that I knew how to use, and it just was not helping him. And I knew I was failing him as a mom. And I knew that he was dealing with something that I did not have the awareness of. And so after years of this, now we're in kindergarten with him, and it's the same thing. Every morning, all the other kids jump out of the car, wave goodbye. We have to pull into a parking lot. We basically have to pull him out of the car every morning, which was heartbreaking. The principal would meet us. She would take him into the school. He'd be devastated and crying. And this happened every single morning without exception. And I remember one day my husband coming to me and he said, "Hey, our friend that lives in Colorado? Remember that new thing she got trained in, Splankna? I really think that we should drive our son to Colorado and do a session with him." And my husband was like, "You know what? I want to try it too. It sounds intriguing. So what if, the two of us go and we'll do some Splankna sessions? I don't know. Maybe that's the ticket." Well, you guys, we had no money back then. And I'm like calculating the gas prices and the hotel that we're going to have to pay for. And then we have to pay for the session. And I was like, you know what? No, we can't do this right now. Like, we had little kids at home. It was winter. It was Christmas break. Like, they hadn't even come back. It was January. Honestly, I tried to talk my husband out of it. But maybe out of desperation, out of curiosity, my husband wanted to try it. He went anyway, and I'm so glad he did. We went to Colorado, and we said to this friend of ours, this woman that we trusted and had been kind of a mentor of ours in our early married years when we lived in Denver. Her name was Judy. We had told her, this is what we're struggling with. We don't know how to help him. We don't know why leaving us is so hard for him. It causes so much stress. And she did a session with him. And you guys, he was in kindergarten, so it's not like he participated. It's not like he was like, well, Judy, let me tell you about the depths of my anxiety. Like, no, he literally watched a YouTube show while they did this session. And through listening prayer and through the muscle testing portion, they got to this age of 9 months. And she's like, okay, so what's coming up is age 9 months. What happened to your son at 9 months? And my husband was like, 9 months? I don't know. Nothing that I can think of. So they continue on with the session. And as it so frequently does, these emotions came up, which reminded my husband of, oh, you know what? And this memory surfaced. He said, wow, well, when we were at a friend's house one time when Noah was 9 months old, Noah was crawling, and he had left the kitchen where all the adults were and just went right around the corner and had tried to go down the stairs all by himself and ended up falling down the whole thing. And they were like wood stairs, not carpet. It was terrible. We had to take him to a chiropractor for 6 months afterwards. Like, it was a big, big, big fall. But it hadn't registered as something to bring up or significant because both my husband and I had this understanding that he was 9 months old. There's no way he remembers that. That can't be it. Little did we know about the subconscious. We had no idea about the subconscious's role in keeping us safe and remembering everything that's ever happened to us. And so he presented that to Judy and he said, maybe that's it. And she tested and she's like, yep, that's what's registering. So they go through, do the entire Splankna session. They clear all these stuck emotions from being this little kid who fell down the stairs. And what they got to at the end, and remember, your subconscious's job is to try to prevent anything scary or painful from ever happening to you ever again. And so it makes these little understandings or these little vows to help you avoid that pain or that fear from ever reoccurring. And the way that my son's subconscious interpreted that entire event was, if I would have never left my dad in the kitchen, if I would have stayed by him, nothing bad would have happened. I got it. No problem. I'll just never leave him ever again. Easy. Now, obviously, that doesn't make conscious sense, and it's not possible to never leave your parents, but it was his brain's desperate attempt at making sure something like that would never, ever happen again. And it's interesting because we would sit down with him, when he was 5, and we'd say, what is it that you're scared is going to happen? Eventually, when we figured out this was a fear-based thing, and he would always say the same thing. I don't know. I just feel like something bad's going to happen. And we would say, is somebody bullying you? Is somebody doing something to you that is making you feel scared? Is someone saying something? Are your teachers mean? And it was always, no, no, no. I just feel like something bad's going to happen. Just like this impending doom that he felt all the time when it was time to leave us. So in that session, that's the thing that they cleared out, that they broke off of him, was this vow of, I'll never leave my mom ever again. I'll never leave my dad ever again. And then I'll be safe. So I wasn't there. I had stayed back in Nebraska, but now that I'm a practitioner, I know it probably sounded something like, Heavenly Father, I confess that when I was 9 months old and fell down those stairs, something in me started to believe the lie that I'll be safe if I just never leave my parents ever again. And I've latched on to that. And I repent of making that decision and all the ways it's kept me stuck and impacted my life and stolen from me. And I ask for your complete healing and your complete forgiveness. And then in the prayer, you invite the Holy Spirit to come in, breathe new life into the place where this memory, this fear, this trauma has been operating. You, on a spiritual level, say like, hey, if there are any entities that got open doors, access to me in this trauma, like a spirit of fear or something similar to that, like I take this whole package and I cast it to the cross. And I ask you, Holy Spirit, to dispose of it all on my behalf as if it had never happened in the first place. Teach me to find my security in you. Teach me to know that I can go anywhere on this planet and you are with me and you direct my steps. And you're replacing all those fear, trauma-based thoughts with truths and thoughts of Christ. And you're asking him to not just have you believe it somewhere in your head as like cute little Christian language, but embed this truth in every cell of my body. Help me to feel grounded and cared for and safe in your presence, no matter what I face. So that was it. My husband prayed this over my son. My son is on watching a video, like hardly even participating because he's 5. And I remember getting a call from my husband the next day. And they were in Colorado at a brand new church that my son had never been to before. Now, my son couldn't even walk into our familiar family church. Like, that just wasn't a thing. But they were at this new church, just my husband, just my son. And my son didn't even really know what the whole Splankna session was about. Like, he was just kind of there for it. But we didn't walk him through. Now, guess what? We just set you free from all. We didn't even process it that way. But my husband called me with tears in his eyes. And he said, you're never going to believe what just happened. We're at church. There's this new church in Colorado that he wanted to check out. And he said, I walked past the kids area and our son Noah had seen this amazing, like they had all the things that would attract a kid to want to go in there. You know, there was like games and prizes and lights and friendly people. And he saw this one game, I don't even know if it was a video game. That's how I recall it in the story. But he had seen this video game and he wanted to play it so bad. And so he looked at the game. He looked at Mason. And Mason, my husband, said, do you want to go to kids' church today? Or do you want to come in big church with me? And Noah looked up and he said, I think I want to go to kids' church. But he was still nervous. But like he chose kids' church, which never, ever happened in our real life. My husband says, I checked him in. I transferred his hand over to the teachers. He walked away willingly. He looked over his shoulder one time back at me like, am I really doing this? And then he faced forward and he went and played the game. My husband's crying as he's telling me this because, you guys, this was so out of character for Noah. He didn't have it in him to be able to do something like that before. We'd never seen him do something like this before. So he, before he even went to church, called me and he's like, I don't even know what to do. Like, Noah's in kids' church and I'm going to adult church by myself and he chose it. And what is this Splankna thing? Oh my word. So we were encouraged, but also skeptical. And I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe it's a new environment. Maybe that's just what he needed. He needed something new and we'll see what happens when he comes home. Well, he comes home and a couple days later, Christmas break is over. It's time to go back to kindergarten after, 2 weeks off. And we go to drop him off at school and he simply opens the door and gets out of the van and walks into school and says, bye, Dad. What? Like he didn't even think anything of it. He got out as if he had gotten out of the van to walk into school like that every day for the past 5 months. And you guys, never again, ever, ever, ever did the principal have to pull him out of our van, bring him into her office and help him calm down before bringing him to his kindergarten classroom. Like not one more time. It was so sudden, so drastic, and so complete of a life change that I didn't have any explanation for it. Part of me still was like, seriously? Was it literally just from that one session? But it was so in my face, obvious and drastic that I had nothing else to credit besides the Splankna session. So fast forward many years later, then I went and got trained in it, which was now 3 years ago. And I have seen the Lord do such amazing, beautiful, truly miraculous things in people's lives since then. And when I talk about this with my son, who is now 12, we always talk about it. We call it his breakthrough. And he remembers bits and pieces of it. He remembers being so scared to go to school, and he remembers not being scared anymore. And this breakthrough story is something he's very, I think, proud of, and shares in that sentiment that we both have of like, how and why did that work so well? Now, I say all that to say my story as his mom was very, very sudden and drastic and shocking. Like my friend Sarah, after she saw him for the first time after his session, she was like, whoa, who is this? Like, we had never met this version of him. Just calm and peaceful and kind and just like easygoing. Something in him was so settled after that. And I say all that because not every session, if you're listening to this and you've never tried a Splankna session, I don't want you to think that your whole life is going to change in one session. Sometimes it does. Sometimes this thing you've been wrestling with for decades or years or months can disappear in one session. And I can tell you stories of those things happening as a practitioner. But also what happens is God heals us over time. And every time you show up to a Splankna session, it's a layer. And we say, God, in your wisdom, this is us coming in complete submission to you. In your wisdom, will you show us the next layer, the most important layer, or the biggest lever we could pull today, the thing we could untwist in this person that would make the most difference for them. And we just let God choose. We let him direct the session. And it seems like sometimes before you get to the intense, big, life-changing trauma moments, the Lord takes you to these littler trauma moments. And it's like peeling layers of an onion. Like, okay, before we get to the big, juicy layer, we've got some other things, like maybe identity things that we have to peel off first. We got to get your identity foundation settled before we go after some traumas of your childhood or your previous marriage or whatever it is. And I love that idea of just letting God be in control of all of it, because I don't know. As your practitioner, I don't know what you need healing in. I don't know what the root of your anger is. I don't know where your low self-esteem started, and I don't have to know, and you don't even have to know, because God does. And he's so faithful to point us in that direction. I don't want you to be discouraged if you've been going to Splankna appointments consistently and faithfully, and you didn't have your whole life changed in one session, because there's something really, really special about healing over time as well. Like giving you bite-sized pieces of transformation. There's a really sweet connection with the Lord, an opportunity for him to speak things to you that you can just and honestly probably need to treasure in your heart and grow in and chew on for a while until he takes you to the next layer. And because all of this is so, there's an element of it, we know this tool of Splankna is effective and it works, but we don't always know how. I often wonder, this is just me, but if the Lord came and just smashed through decades of trauma, would we even be able to handle it? Could our systems, our body, our whole beings, could we handle like everything being blown through at the same time? I don't know. And maybe in his wisdom, that's why he takes us step by step sometimes. But I want you to know both of them are important. Both of them are special. And I'm so, so grateful. I think in my case too, if it was the Lord's plan for my life to get trained in Splankna, which I believe it was, I think he had to give me something extreme to help me get out of this registered nurse under a microscope kind of mindset that I was in. Something to get my attention that I was undeniably miraculous and shocking and didn't line up with any of the teaching that I had so far. I look back at that story and I'm so, so, so grateful that we knew Judy and we trusted her as a friend. And I know that a lot of you listening, you don't have a trusted friend that you've known for years that now has gotten trained in Splankna. So it's a harder step for you to call up a random stranger who's a Splankna practitioner and say, hey, I'm ready to try this. Because it was hard for me, and I knew Judy and trusted her and loved her dearly. And it was still hard for me, which is why I wanted to have this podcast. I want to get the word out so people know that this is an option. It's a tool that's available to them. I want you to be able to meet a practitioner, me, or some of the other practitioners I bring on here, so you can hear that they are just normal people who love Jesus and believe in this modality because they've seen it do the miraculous things over and over again. My hope is that these podcasts close the gap for you, because I want nothing more than for God's people to be walking in the freedom that he tells us about. It is like the number one thing that breaks my heart right now is watching God's people walk around this planet completely stuck in this prison cell of low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, self-hatred, suicidal ideations, flashbacks, PTSD. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not life to the full that Jesus promised us. Something like we know as believers, we hear it all the time in church. We were created for freedom. We were created for healing. Christ purchased it on the cross. But the reality of what we're walking in doesn't reflect that so often. So many people are so bound up in these tangles of life. And I want nothing more than for people to experience in real time, before heaven, freedom. Freedom from the enemy's lies, freedom from the enemy's offerings or traps. These things that have stolen from our belief in our identity, our belief in our worth. And we're all just like silently suffering from things that happened months ago or years ago or decades ago. And it feels so unfair. It's like, okay, God, you said that you came to set us free. I want to know every place that God's children are being prevented from walking in that freedom, because I know that my God is not a liar. And if he says that we were created for freedom and he purchased it for us, then it's our birthright to walk in it. And it feels so wrong to me to see so many people wanting that freedom and feeling so stuck in it. And that's why it's so deeply, I don't know, my heart is filled with gratitude to just sit in session after session after session with these people and literally watch the Lord take a key and unlock something in these people. And they step out of the prison of anxiety, out of the prison of self-hatred, out of the prison of depression over and over and over again. And I watch the Lord speak things to their hearts and their spirits in the middle of a session where maybe for the first time in 40 years, they finally hear that God loves them and it means something to them and it lands. It has a landing place in them and they finally get it. Like, I will never, ever, ever get tired of watching that happen right in front of my eyes. God is so good. He will use so many modalities to bring freedom to us. There are so many tools to freedom and healing. Like, you can even sit in God's presence and turn on some worship music and ask Him to take you to the root of whatever it is that you're struggling with. And He's faithful to talk you through that and do that. Like, what I want you to hear me say is Splankna isn't the end all be all. It is just a tool. But with God's life breathed into it and people submitted to Him, listening to His direction and His voice and His guidance, it is not just a tool. It is a powerful tool. It is a powerful tool to start walking in what I feel like the Lord is handing out to everybody. I just want to give you guys a little picture about what my life has looked like since I got trained. Ever since then, 3 years ago, I've been holding appointments with clients regularly. Currently, I work like 2 mornings a week. I have people that come in every other week, once a month, once a quarter, sometimes every week, depending on how extensive their trauma history is. You know, like someone who had a really great childhood but is working through something very specific is going to look different than someone who had 20 years of abuse and neglect and trauma in their childhood. For a while, I was trying to do my job as a registered nurse and a Splankna practitioner and hold space for both of those at the same time. And I had my 5 kids, that I'm raising right now. They're ages 4 to 14. And so just like in the throes of all of that, wanting to be present, wanting to be all in for them as well. And it just got to be too much. So I felt the Lord start asking me to step down from my job as a registered nurse, which was so heartbreaking. If you know me at all, you've heard that story, because I wrestled with it for 9 months before I finally said, okay, fine, I'll quit. It took me a little while because I loved that job so much. It was working with women who are in crisis and coming alongside of them from a medical perspective. And my best friends worked at this clinic as well. And I just knew that once I stepped away from that, those friendships were going to change. My access to seeing them as often was going to change. But a year and a half ago, I did step down and have been doing just Splankna now. I'm not trained in virtual sessions. I'm not certified in virtual sessions, but I do want you to know that there are practitioners who do have that certification. So if you go on the website, splankna.com, and there's nobody in your area who does Splankna, you can look up anyone who says that they are listening prayer certified, and they can meet with you virtually. And of course, there's not going to be any kind of muscle testing or anything like that. They're going to do it strictly through listening prayer. And they're going to ask the Lord what we're working on today, where is it stored, what pressure points to hold. And it is incredibly powerful, just as powerful as if you were doing it in person. So I want to make that known to you, because a lot of times people don't know what listening prayer Splankna means. But I highly encourage you to check it out if you haven't done your own sessions. I hear from people all the time, especially on TikTok, Splankna changed my life. Like, simple as that. Changed my life. Not made it easier, not made it better, but like changed my life. And I can tell you from being a practitioner, it's so true. I sit in front of people that say the same thing, and it is just the coolest process ever. If you're hearing this, I want to let you know that there is one more core training for anyone who's thinking about becoming a Splankna practitioner. It's happening in October. The main part of it, the training, is happening in Denver, but there's also 2 other, off-site locations where they'll kind of play the trainings over live stream, and they'll have trainers on site with you, and you can learn from there. You can sign up at splankna.com for all that information. And October will be the last core training. And then I know there's an advanced training that is just going down this last week here in July. And then I'm just signed up for the master's session, the master's level training that happens every October, November. So that happens once a year. After you complete core training, then you complete advanced. And after you complete advanced, you can complete master's. And then master's training acts like a little bit of a reunion / training. So you brush up on your skills, you get continuing education type trainings and inputs, but it's also just this really amazing community of people who think like you do. They've experienced Splankna like you have. You can share all the cool testimony stories. You stay at a hotel, you get meals together, you pray together, there's worship times together. It is an amazing, amazing time. So I'm looking forward to that. If any of you have finished advanced or thinking of finishing advanced and want to still try to make it for the master's training in October, I'm just letting you know about that. And I think that's it. It's been a while since I've told you guys my story of how I became a Splankna believer. And it was only through this experience with my son that I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful he let me share his story. If you have any questions, I love hearing from you guys. Some of you have emailed me recently, and I just absolutely can't even tell you how much I love getting those emails from you. All of that information, my email is in the show notes below. theenergytoheal@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.